We begin the Gemara today at the bottom of Daf Tzadikei Amud Beis, 7 lines up from the bottom of the Amud, where it says Amalei Ravina LeRavashi. The Gemara right before this brought a statement from Shmuel. One of the things that he said was, when you have a malva, a lender that's coming to collect his loan, and he's not collecting it directly from the borrower himself, rather the borrower sold off his properties to someone. So now he's coming to that buyer to collect the properties. So Shmuel said that you can collect everything, and that includes even the property in its condition today. And the lekeach, the buyer, improved it. There's new fruits that grew there. So those fruits are really not yours to collect. It's just your shibud, your lien that you have on the property is just the actual property itself. But you take it all, but then you have to reimburse the buyer for the peiros, the shvach that he invested in it, and you pay him money for that. Which means you don't leave him a certain percent of the property itself equivalent to his investment. No, you take the whole property to collect for your loan, but then you reimburse him for what he invested in it with money. That's the statement that Shmuel said. So the Gemara now asks a contradiction over this, on this from another statement that Shmuel said. Did Shmuel say, Baal Choiv, that this lender that comes to lekeach, when he's collecting from a lekeach, yov leishvach. So when he pays him back, when he's collecting, he has to pay him back the shvach, the improvement, the fruits, the investment that he invested, and he has to pay him back money for this. But V'ama Shmuel, in another place Shmuel said, Baal Choiv goyves shvach. The Baal Choiv that's coming to collect this property that he had a lien on before this buyer bought it, he can collect the whole thing. He can collect including the peiros and whatever other improvements grew right now as well. Doesn't have to reimburse him with anything. Amalei, so Rav Ashi answered, like Kashya. It's not a question. It depends what kind of shvach there is here, whether the Baal Choiv could collect this. If we're talking about, let's say, wheat that's growing, and it's growing tall all the way up to the person's shoulders, meaning this wheat that's growing here is basically all done and ripe already. That's something that the lender that's coming to collect can't take for himself, because it's like ripe and it's almost considered already like it's already cut off from the property. It's not part of the land itself. So you have a lien on the land itself, but not to the ripe produce that's there that belongs to the buyer. But if it's growing and it's not ripe yet, it's not all the way up to the shoulders, and it still needs the growth from the property itself, so that's considered to be part of the property that you have a lien on, and you can come and collect it and keep it for yourself. You don't have to reimburse him. Amalei, so Ravina asked back Rav Ashi on his answer, but we know that this happens all the time when a lender comes to collect from the buyer. And Shmuel allowed the lender to go and collect this property from him and take it all. Take even including when you have the produce that's almost ripe, it's all the way up to the shoulders, and he allowed him to collect it all for his loan. So how can you make this distinction? Amalei, so he said a different answer. Loi kashya, contradiction of Shmuel's opinion is not a contradiction, because it depends how much he's coming to collect. What's the value of his loan in regards to what the value of the property is? If he's coming to collect a loan, which is the value of the property, and the fruits or whatever produce is growing there now, so then you can take it all. Then Shmuel allowed him to go and collect it, even including the produce that was ripe already. But if your loan that you're coming to collect is only the value of the actual property itself, and the additional fruits that are there now, it's more than the value of your loan. So then, on that, Shmuel said you take the entire property, and you could actually even keep the fruits as well, but then you have to reimburse him that extra value that's more than the money that's owed for your loan. The Gemara on this answer, Amalei, so Ravina said to him, but still, the question over here is, in such a case, why are you just reimbursing him with money? There's two options here. You could either reimburse him with money, you take the whole thing, but then because your loan is not the value of the whole thing, including the peiros, so you reimburse him with money, or you leave him a certain percent of the property itself. So Shmuel says you take the whole thing and you reimburse him just with money. So the question is, why can't the buyer say, leave me a certain percent of the property itself? And the Gemara explains that this depends on another machlekes. So the question is, the fact that he can take the whole property and just reimburse him with money, this is understood, according to the opinion that says, what's if this buyer, there's a lien on this property that he bought, but he has money, and he tells the lender, you're coming to collect from this property that there's a lien on it. I'm going to pay your loan up with money. Don't leave the property. I bought it. I want to have it. I'll pay you money. So there's one opinion that says that he is zuzi lekeach. If this lekeach has money, he can't turn around to the lender and say, here, I'm paying you money. There's a lien on the property itself, and therefore this property doesn't belong to the buyer. The shibud is so strong, it belongs to the lender, so you can take it away. So then, Shapir, it's understood over here as well, since the actual property itself, it's mamish, the ownership of this lender, so therefore, even now, when there's fruits that grew in it, it makes sense to say that he can come and confiscate the entire property, including the fruits as well, for himself, and then he just reimburses him the extra value that's more than the loan that was owed to him, so he reimburses him with that. But really, the whole entire property belongs to him, so he could take it all. But there's another opinion that says, if this buyer has money, he's able to turn around to the lender always when he comes to collect this property and say to him, don't take the land itself. I'll pay you off. I'll give you money instead of the property itself. So if so, over here as well, when he's coming to collect, and there's extra shvach, there's extra fruits that are here, more than the loan that he owes him. So why shouldn't the buyer now say to him, if I would have had money, I would have the right to tell you not to touch this land, and I would give you money. Because according to this opinion, the shibud that the malva has on this property is not so strong. Really, the true owner of this property is the lekeach. Elamai, because of the shibud, he has the right, if the lekeach doesn't have any way how to pay him, he has the right to take it away from him. But otherwise, if he has money, so then the real owner right now of this property is the buyer. So if so, hashte, now that you're coming to collect the loan, and the value of your loan does not include the additional shvach, the fruits that are here, so the buyer should say, Havli grive da'are shir shavchoi, give me a certain portion of the land itself, which is the amount corresponding to the shvach, to my investment or my fruits that grew over here in this land. Why should you take the entire thing and then pay me back money? The land really belongs to me. I have the option of just giving you money and the land should stay with me. So now, even when you're coming to collect the land itself, but the extra, that's not part of your loan, the shvach that I invested, that percent of the land leave for me. So why did Shmuel say that you just reimburse him with money? Amalei, Saravashi answered, over here, the case of this property that he's collecting, and he can collect it all, even the shvach, and he only reimburses him with money. The case here is, this is a land which is not a regular shibud, a lien that you have on a property because of a loan. But the borrower said, apaitiki. Apaitiki means he designated it. The word apaitiki is made up of three words, apait, tehei, koi. Specifically from here, you're going to collect your loan. The Levit told the Malva, the only place you're going to get your payment is from here. In such a case, everybody agrees that the property, the real ownership of the property is to this Malva, to this lender, and therefore he can collect the whole thing, including the shvach, which is there growing the property. It's part of the property, he collects everything. But that the extra, more than the value of his loan, which is corresponding to the shvach, so he reimburses the lekeach with money. But the ownership of the property itself really belongs to the malva because of this apaitiki. Now the Gemara returns to the halacha that we discussed before, b'nigeya to a case of a gazlan, steals something, and then the condition of it changes, and there's a shinui in it. So the Gemara brings a halacha, Omar Rave said, Gazal ve'ishbiach, you stole something. Let's say the case the Gemara spoke about before was you stole an animal and vishbiach, and it was improved, it became pregnant, and so on, such a case like that. And then machar, you sold this animal to someone else, or v'gazal vishbiach, or you stole this animal and same thing. Gazal v'ishbiach, you stole this animal and it became improved. I became pregnant, and then the person died, and now his children yashin this animal. So what's the halach in this case? Rashi explains this Gemara here, that our Gemara is either following the opinion that we had before, according to Rab Shimon. On Daf Tzadikei, the Gemara brought that Rab Shimon's opinion in such a case is, this is not enough of a shinui in the body of the animal that you really fully kain it. Because it's the same animal, elamai, there's a shvach in this body of the animal itself, that it became pregnant and so on, but it's not a real shini that you fully kain it. Rather, in such a case, the Goslin returns the animal itself as is to the owner. But because the Goslin sort of took care of this animal in this time period when he stole it, he fed it and now it became pregnant, the Goslin gets a certain percent corresponding to that shvach. Just like if a person would have taken this animal as a worker and would have fed it and would have brought this shvach, that worker gets paid this percent. This Goslin that basically went and did this without permission, he stole it, and now he did the service, so to speak. It's like a yored teich zdei where you go into a person's property without a shush, you get paid a certain percent for what you're doing, even if it was without permission. That's the opinion of Shimon. That's one way Rashi explains over here what this Gemara is talking about. Another way Rashi explains that what the Gemara is talking about over here is, going back to the beginning of the Perek, where it spoke about a kind of a shinui, which is chayzel l'briyasei, a kind of a improvement which is not permanent. It can go back to its original condition. It's not a real shinui. So basically, if this Gemara here would be talking about a real shinui, there's no question about it that you're fully kaina, and then the Yiddish and the lekeach that got it from you can fully keep it because it's fully yours. Here, we're talking about a kind of shinui which is not a full kinyan. And now a buyer has it, or someone, the child that inherits it has it. So Rava said, "Mashish biach machar, mashish biach hoirish." Whatever shvach, whatever improvement that there is here, that you get a certain percent of this, so the buyer also gets that percent, or the Yiddish also gets that percent. That's something that Rava said, that was a statement that was clear to him. But then Boy Rava, the shaila that Rava asked though is, Hishbiach lekeach mahu. What's a Goslin that stole the animal, and the condition of the animal in the possession of the Goslin is the same. There's no shini at all. But now the buyer, by him, he was mashbiach. He fed the animal, it became pregnant by him. Ma, what's the halacha here? In other words, the question is, do I say, just like by the Goslin himself, when the Goslin is mashbiach, so then there's a certain level of ownership that he has on it, according to the various opinions I mentioned before, but not by the lekeach. We don't say that regarding the lekeach, or do we say that by the lekeach as well? Basa the Baye, had the Pashte, Rava himself afterwards resolved this and said, Ma mocha rishon l'sheni kol schus shetov yodei. What did the first, which is the Goslin, sell to the second, to the buyer? Whatever schus he himself has, the very same schus the buyer has, just like by the Goslin himself. When it's mashbiach, he has a certain level of ownership over it, so now the buyer has the very same level of ownership as well. Another shaila by Rava asked, a guy that steals an animal, and he was mashbiach this behemah, is there any level of a kinyan like that we mentioned before, whether the takana, again, we're not referring to a real shinui here, we're talking about the shinui that was a shinui chayzer, a shinui that goes back, and chazal, that's a takanas chazal, that it should be considered a shinui, and the Goslin can keep that shvach, or the opinion of Rab Shimon, as I mentioned, that you take a certain percent. The Gemara wants to know now whether that applies by a guy. So the Gemara asks on this shaila, how could Rav even ask the shaila regarding a guy? Takanta loivit kechavim. Nekev and Avid, we should get up and make a takana that should apply for a guy as well. Since we're talking over here about a kind of shini that's not a real permanent shini, we're talking about this takanas chachamim that the Goslin can keep this shinui. And what was the reason for this takana? It was all to make the tshuva of the Goslin easier. That he can give back the animal in the condition that it was stolen, and any additional shinui, he gets the percent of it, or he gets it itself. But this is a takana that we made for a yid to be able to do tshuva. Why should that takana apply for a guy? So he answered him, Rav asked the shayla, the case over here is the guy stole it, but then afterwards he sold it to a yid. So maybe now when he sold it to a yid, so maybe that now it's in the yid's possession, so the takana should apply. But the Gemara doesn't accept this pshat either. Sof, in the end of the day, haba machma sovet kichavim. Anybody that gets something and he buys it from a guy, he should have the same status as the guy himself. Just like there's no din of shinui in such a kind of case by the guy himself, the takana of chachamim doesn't apply here. By the yid that's getting it from the guy, it shouldn't apply either. So then the Gemara says the shaila of Rava was in the following case. What we need, the shaila over here was kagain, the gazal yisrael. This animal was originally stolen by a yid, and then v'zavne nehalei v'ishbichai v'kechavim. He sold it to a guy, and the guy in his possession took care of it, improved it, and there was a shvach here. And v'hav de'oi v'kechavim v'zavne Yisrael. And now this guy went and sold it back to a yid. Now the question is, what's the halach in such a case? This shvach over here, is there any kinyan that the Yisrael has now in it? And do I say, Kiv in the Meikar Yisrael, Vahad Yisrael, in the beginning it belonged to the Yisrael, and now it's sold back to the Yisrael of the Rabbanah Takanta. The Takana of the Chachamim, that you keep that Shvach applies. But or we say no, because there was a guy in the middle and he's the one that made the Shvach, in this case, the Takana of Chachamim does not apply. Teiku, this remains unresolved. Rav Papa said, here the Gemara is going to go through different examples of objects that a person steals, and there's a shinui, there's a change in the condition of the chayfetz, whether that shinui is strong enough that you should be able to be kaina. The basis of this whole Gemara here is like the opinion that says that if it's a shinui achayzel libriyasa, if it's a shinui that reverts back to its original condition, there's no kinyan here at all, and Chazal will not masakan a kinyan. It has to be a real shinui. So the Gemara goes through a few examples. Haiman the gazel dikle mechavre the kotle. Person that stole a palm tree from his friend and he cut it off. And what did he do with it? Afal gav the shadye ma'ara. Even though when he cut it off, so his property is right near his friend's property, and he threw it down from his property from his friend's property, that is into his property. La'ara didei, into his property. So he replanted it in his property. Loi kani. This kind of a when you steal it in this kind of way, so you may think that this is a shinui. Before it was a palm tree that grew in one location, and now you ripped it out and you put it and it's growing in your property. But no, this is not a shinui that you're going to be kind of this, that you only have to return the money and not the palm tree itself. The palm tree is considered to be the same, and you have to return it itself. My time, why? Meikar dikle mikri. Before it has the name dikle, it's a palm tree, and vahashta nami dikle mikri. Even though now it's planted in your property, but still called the same palm tree. Okay, so now it's interesting that the Gemara here brings up the name. Usually, when it comes to a shinui in the chayfetz, the name is not necessarily relevant for the shinui. We had it earlier in Perek Merubah. The Gemara discusses there's a concept called shinui maisa, when there's a shinui in the condition of the actual chayfetz itself. Then there's a different thing. There's a shinui Hashem, when there's a difference in the title and the name of it. Here, though, because this is not a real shinui, the Gemara is saying if there would be a shinui in the name, then you could consider it a shinui. But if there's no shinui in the name, the physical change of the location of where the palm tree is, that you replanted it in your property, that's not a real shinui. And the same thing applies to all the other cases here, as we'll see. Dikle v'avid guvi. If a person took a palm tree and he cut the wood from it and he made logs out of it, loikani. This is also not a shinui that you'll be kaina. Because hashtami is guvi the dikle mikri, because it's still the same wood, and even these logs, it's called the logs of a palm tree. So therefore, it's not enough of a shinui. Guvi vavdinu kshuri. However, if you take logs of wood and then you turn it into kshuri, into beams, kani, that's a real shinui, that you kaina. It's a whole new thing and it has a new name. It's called now beams. Kshuri ravrevi, if you take large beams, vavdinu kshuri zutri, and you cut it down into small beams, loikani, that you're not kain, it still has the same name of beams, even though it's large or small. Avdinu ktsutsaisa, but if you take these beams and you cut it thin into boards of wood, then kani, then you will be kain. It's a new name, it's a new thing. Amarav said, I'm on the gazel lulive, a person that steals a lulav. And he takes the lulav, the lulav has the leaves on it, vavdinu hutzi, and he cuts off the leaves of the lulav, and now he has these leaves of the lulav that are separated. So kani, you will be kaina, because it's a shinui, he ripped it off, and it has a whole new name. The meikara luliv mikri, first it had the name lulav, and hashta hutzi, and now it's called hutzi. So even though it's not such a big shinui, it's the same leaves, but those leaves now, besides the fact that it's ripped off, it has a whole new name as well. Hutzi vavdinu chufya, if you take these leaves of a lulav and you make a broom out of it, kani, you're also going to be kaina, because mekara hutzi, before it's called leaves, v'hashta chufya, now it's called a broom. Chufya, if you take this broom, va'avde sharshura, and you turn it into rope, you take it and you twist it together to become a rope, loikani, that you're not going to be kaina, even though it's changed and has a new name, because my time, but why not? The hada saser le v'havi chufya, because this rope you could untangle it and turn it back into the broom that it was before. So that's a shinui achayzer libriyasa, and as I mentioned over here, the Gemara is going according to the opinion that a shinui achayzer, you're not kaina at all. By Rav Papa asked a shaila regarding the lulav. And here the Gemara talks about a lulav which is designated for the mitzvah of lulav, of the Dal Minim. So nechleka hatu yaimis. So you have a lulav that is, in order for the lulav to be kosher, So the top leaf, or the middle of the lulav, the center leaf of the lulav that grows as a twin leaf, all the leaves of the lulav really grows as a twin leaf, but the shadra, the center of the lulav, so that it was cut, it was opened, it was split. If it was split, most of it, so then it becomes pasul. So mahu, what's going to be the halacha now? A person stole the lulav and it became an open split. Is this a shinui that pasuled it now, and therefore you're going to be kind of this? So he said about the halacha of a lulav, what makes it pasul? Nitla tiyamis pasul. That if the tiyamis, that top, the shadr, the top middle center of the leaf, if that's a twin leaf and it's cut off, it's removed, then that passes the lulav. So my love, don't you think huadin lenechlaka? Just like if it's removed, it's going to be pasul. The same thing is also if it's split open. They're both pasul. Whether it's removed or it's split open, because they're both not in the condition, the way they're supposed to be, the way they grow. So therefore, in both cases, they're going to be pasul. So if it's pasul, so then this is a shinui. It's before it's a kosher lulav, not it's a pasul lulav. So you're going to be kaina. And says the Gemara, lo, it's not the same thing. Nitlo shani, if the tiyamis, that center leaf was removed, that's different. Why the hachasr law? It's a different kind of a psul. Over there, the psul is that there's something that's missing in the lulav. It says that the netil of lulav has to be, and the tam has to be, you have to have the whole min of the lulav. When the tiyamis is removed, the psul is the fact that it's missing something. Nachlaka tiyamis is also a psul, but it's a different type of psul. It's a psul maybe that it's not hodder, it's split open, but it's not that it's something missing over here. So therefore, that kind of a psul is not enough to be a real shinui that you should be kind of. This is one version. But Ikadamri, there's another version that says the opposite. Tashama, the Amr Abmat, Namra Bishua ben Levi, Nechlaka tiyamis, when the tiyamis, the middle leaf is split, Nase, Kimi, Shenotla, Upasal. It's the same psul as if you removed it. It's the same level of a psul, just like when you removed it, it's chaser. When it's split open, it's like it's chaser, and therefore it's such a strong psul, and therefore, Shmam, from here we learn out that because it's like it's chaser, so therefore you're going to be kind of this, through this kind of a shinui. Rav Papa said another halacha regarding a shinui of a gazlan. Haiman de gozel afra. Person stole someone's sand, michavri, from his friend. Va'avde levente, and he formed the sand into bricks. Leikani, you won't be kind through this kind of a shinui. My time, but why not? The hada mashvile afra, because you can crumble it back into the sand that it was. Levente va'avde afra. If you stole bricks and you crumbled it into sand, kani, that you will be kind. Why don't you say that you can make it back into the cement, into the brick that it was? The Gemara explains, Ma Yomrit, what are you going to say? Dilma Hodav Ovid Leila Vente, that you can form it back into the brick that it was before? No. You cannot form it back to the brick that it was before. If you steal it and then you crumble it into sand and then you want to make it back to the original brick that it was, it's a different brick. It's a new face, it's a new brick. You could never bring it back to the very same shape and size exactly the way it was before. That's what Rashi says over here. Rav Papa said, a person steals a bar of silver from his friend. And he mints it into coins. Loikani, you're also not kind here. My time, why not? You could melt this silver back into the bar of silver that it was. Zuzi vavdinu nasche. On the other hand, if you stole silver coins and you melted it into a bar of silver, then you will be kaina. You're going to ask, my yomrit, what will you say? Hada va'avid lahu zuzi. After you melt it into a bar of silver, you could mint it back into coins the way it was before. No, you can't. Panim chadasha is ba'ol lekan. When you mint it back into coins, it's not the same. It's new coins that you minted now, and you can't make it back exactly the way it was before. Shchimi, if you stole coins that were dark, they were black, they were already used coins. Vavdinu chadeti, and you shined it, you scrubbed it, and you made it like brand new. Like kani, you're not going to be kaina because this reverts back to its original condition. It's going to get dark and black again. Chadeti, vavdinu shechimi. But if you have new coins, and now you use them, and it changed, and it became blackened, kani, so then you will be kaina. This is a change that will not ever go back to its original shine the way it was. As the Gemara explains, Ma Yomrit, what are you going to say? Hada avidlu chadeti, you can shine it back and make it like new the way it was before. Meide yediyah shechmayu. There's always going to be some residue, something of that original blackness that there is in it from the usage you can never take away. Never going to go back the way it was. It's a real shimei. The Gemara now quotes what we had in the Mishnah at the beginning of the Perek. The Mishnah finished off with a klal. Zeh klal. This is the rule. Kol gazlanin mishalmen kishas gzeila. That a gazlan only has to pay for what he stole in the condition that it was at the time that he stole it. Whatever change happens later on, that new shvach, he doesn't have to pay. The Mishnah brought the examples, right? When an animal gave birth, so the baby that's born you can keep, you only give back the animal the way it was, kishas gzeila. So the question is, why does the Mishnah have to say this rule if the Mishnah already said the halacha and gave examples before? Mishnah saying this klal, what is it coming to add more that it didn't say already, that we don't understand from the Mishnah before? Answers the Gemara, this comes to add this that Rabbi Law said. We had this quoted earlier in the Masechta and Perek Merubah. Ganav tleh, person stole a sheep, v'nasa ayil, and this tleh matures, then it becomes a ram. That's at the age of 13 months. So the animal matures and it turns into a ram. So there's a change here in the condition of the animal just by the maturity. Or egel v'nasa shoyer, a calf. After a year, it's not called a calf anymore, it's an ox. Nasa shinui biyodai, just the maturity itself is considered to be a shinui v'konei. And you acquire it, and therefore tavach or machar, if the gazlan now goes and slaughters it or sells it, which is when you have to pay 4 or 5 times as much, shaloyu teveach, shaloyu meicher, the actual animal itself, because of this shinui, becomes his. He only pays back money in the condition that it was when he stole it. So therefore, the halacha of tvicha mechira would not apply over here. We had this earlier in the Masechta, and there Rashi actually explained that this shinui, you only kain it legabe tvicha mechira, not to be chayiv on the tvicha mechira. But legabe, the actual gzeila, Rashi there said you do have to give back the actual shoyer or the actual ayal the way it's now, and not in the condition the way it was when it was stolen. That's Rashi's shitta. It's very interesting because over here we're talking about this Mishnah that's speaking about the halacha of gzeila itself, not only the halacha of selling it or slaughtering it. But that's what Rashi says. There was a story with an individual. The Gazal Padne, the Turi Mechavre, he stole a pair of oxen from his friend. Ozal Karav Buhu Karve. And he went and he used it to plow in his field. And Zara Buzare used it to help him to plant in his field. L'soif Adrin Alamare. He was done using it for the job that he needed. He went and he returned it to its owner. Asla Kamed Rav Nachman. So the owner came to Rav Nachman to complain about this person that stole and used his pair of oxen. Amalahu. So he told them, to the owners, Zilu Shumishvache the Ashbach, go and estimate the value of what he used your oxen for to improve his property, that it plowed and then it grew. See the shvach that his property had through your oxen, and that's what he has to pay you. That's what he has to pay you even though he returned the oxen himself. Amalei Rave, so Rav asks Rav Nachman about this psak din. Turi yashbach, ara lo yashbach. Is it only the oxen that brought this improvement to the property, but the actual soil of the field itself is not also part of what brings this shvach? How are you estimating now this shvach of what grew in the property and saying that all of it is attributed just to the oxen, and therefore this gazlan has to pay all of that value back to the owner of these oxen? It's not just those oxen that bring the shvach, it's the property itself that has the soil and other things. The other factors also bring the shvach. So Amar Rav Nachman answers, Mika min neshayme kula. Do you think I meant to say that you have to evaluate the full value over here of the shvach, and that's what he has to pay? Palga kamina. I meant to say that when you see the full value of what was gained here in what grew, then you divide that in half, and half of it you could attribute to the oxen, and that pay the owner for using his oxen. Amalei, so Rav still challenges psak din of Rav Nachman. Sof. In the end of the day, though, why do you have to pay for this? Gzeiluhu. What did this person do? He stole the oxen. The kahadra. And he returned the oxen to the owner as is. So, and he gave it back as is. The Tanan, and we learned in the Mishnah, that Gazlanim have to pay whatever they stole in the condition that what he stole is at the time when he stole it, and you give it back. So over here, true, what he did was not right, and he's not allowed to take them, he's not allowed to use it for the work in his field, but he gave back the oxen as is. So there's nothing additional that he has to pay. Why are you making him pay here also for what the improvement that he got on his property out of this? Amalei, so Rav Nachman says to Raveh, Lo yaminulach, didn't they once tell you, Ki yasivne bedine, when I'm sitting by a dentair and I'm paskening, Lo temeli midi, don't react, don't tell me anything how to pasken. Because the Ama Huna Chaverin, Huna, our friend, said, Aloi, about me, Anna Ushvar Malke, myself, which is Rav Nachman, and Shvar Malka. Shvar Malka is a nickname for Shmuel, that Shmuel had a control and paskening halachas to such a strong degree that they gave him this nickname of the king, Shvar Malka, like a king. Achi bedine, we're like brothers, in paskening dinim mominus, and we have the same power, the same power in dinim mominus. And therefore, what he's saying is as follows: Hi, Inish, this person over here. The reason why I said that he should pay also the value of what this person used in the property and the gain that he had from it. Inish gazlana tiku. This is an old gazlan, and therefore, Rabbi Benedict say, I wanted to give him a penalty for what he did. True, make it adin. He gave back the ox. He doesn't have to pay anything else. But I wanted to give him a knas. So therefore, you see over here, the Shainim say from this Gemara, we had before in the Gemara, usually in Bavel, you don't give any knosses. But over here you see Rav Nachman was in Bavel. The Bezdin has a power if it decides that it wants to give a knas, like such a case where this person is an old gazlan, the Bezdin could impose a penalty on this person. Another halacha over here regarding when you steal an object and the condition of the object or the animal that you stole changes. A person stole this animal and it got old and weak. So now the first Mishnah spoke about the change when it got better, when it got pregnant or so on. Over here we're talking about a change that went down in value. Or avodim v'eskino, or you stole slaves and they got old and weak. Mishalim kishasa gezela. So the actual behem or the avodim itself in their condition today, because there's a shinna, you're kind of that. You keep that for yourself. But you have to return only the value that it was at the time. You have to return more. This original value that it was at the time of the Gzela. Rab Meir says, when it comes to slaves, that you're not kind of the slaves the way their condition is now. You give back the slaves the way they are in their condition today, even though he's already an old slave and he's much weaker. And we had before in the Gemara explains this because an Eved has the halacha similar to Karka. By karka, there's never such a thing if you steal a land that the gazlan gets ownership over it and he only pays back money. The karka itself always goes back to the original owner, no matter what the condition is. The same with the eved, it's like a karka, that you always give back to the original owner as is. Gazal matbeya, you stole a coin, v'nizdak, and the condition of the coin deteriorated, it cracked. Or peiris v'kivu, you stole fruits and it rotted. Yayin v'echmitz, wine, and it became vinegar. Mishalim kashas gzela. In all these cases, this is a real noticeable change, and therefore the actual thing that you stole, you keep yourself, but you have to pay back the original value that it had at the time when it was stolen. However, there's other cases where a person steals, and the change that happened is not a noticeable change. Matbeya v'nifsal. If a person steals coins and now it's not used anymore in circulation, the actual physical condition of the coins is the same, but it's not used anymore. Or truma v'nitmis. You stole truma produce and now it became tame. So physically you don't see any change in it. Or chametz v'aval of a Pesach. You stole chametz and now you had it over Pesach, and now because of that it became now osir to use. But the physical condition of the chametz is the same. Or behema v'nisavda ba'aveda, or you stole a behema and an aveda was done with it, such an aveda that it can't be brought as a carbon. It was used in an appropriate way for aveda zara or something else, so therefore it can't be brought as a carbon. Or sorry, it could be before the Gemara Mishnah says about a carbon, it says it was used for an aveda that it becomes asa b'hana altogether. Oy shenifsala malgabe mizbeach, or you stole an animal and it got a kind of a blemish that it can't be brought on the Mizbeach, and Rashi spells out that the kind of blemish we're talking about is something that's not noticeable. Like let's say a cataract on the eye, which is considered to be a mum, and it can be brought as a carbon, but it's not something that which is really so noticeable in the condition of the animal. Or you stole this animal and now, because it killed someone, so now it's asaba, no, it has to be taken out, be stoned to death. In all these cases where there's no actual shinui in the physical animal or the physical thing that you stole, you give the item back as is. Rav Papa said regarding the first case in the Mishnah, when you stole an animal and it got old, lo yeskina skina mamish, doesn't mean literally that it has to be that the animal got old. Even if any part of the animal got weak in any of its limbs and it changed in its condition, the same halacha applies that you kind of the animal itself and you pay back its original value. In fact, the Gemara about Va'anan is skinat nan. Our Mishnah specifically says that the animal changed, it got old, that the entire animal changed. Answers the Gemara, Kachasha Kagainiskina. What the Mishnah meant to say is, Lav Dafka got old. It's using the example of getting old to say that it's not enough that there's a certain change in one little detail of the limbs of the animal. It has to be a change where it got weak, similar to when it gets old, Dolihada body. See, even if it is in one area of the animal, but if it's a kind of change that it doesn't go back to its original condition, that's a shinui, that you're kind of this, and you only pay the money for this. Amalei Mar Kishishe, Bered Rav Chisda Ravashi. Mar Kishishe, the son of Rav Chisda, said to Ravashi, and here the Gemara brings the same point that we brought before the Mishnah. Hachi Kamri Mishmei de Rav Yechanan. And he said this point in the name of Rav Yechanan. Afil a ganav tlev v'nasa ayil. You steal a sheep and it's now matures and it's now a ram, or ego v'nasa shoyer. It's a calf and now it matures and it's an ox. Nasa shini biyadai. This is a shini. This is now you're kind of this v'kanai, and therefore tavach amacha shaloya tavech shaloya moicher. If you steal it or if you sell it, that is, or you slaughter it, it's yours because you're only paying back the money. So he quoted this in the name of Rabbi Yechanan. Amalei, so he said to him, Lava minolach, didn't I once tell you, loy tachlev gavra? Don't switch the names of the people when you are quoting things. Hahu mishmei de Rabbi Lo itma. That was something that was said in the name of Rabbi Lo, not in the name of Rabbi Yechanan. So therefore you have to be medayik in the name. The Gemara here is bringing this. It's an introduction for the next piece of the Gemara, where the Gemara is going to discuss the name of Rab Meir and the Rabbanon to be medayik exactly who's the one that said this. Okay, we'll leave the next piece of Mitzvah for tomorrow.